Thank you, Adrian, and welcome everybody from, I think, Belgium, but also from across Europe. I'm very happy that you could join for the couple hour. And I'm going to present, as Adrian said, a psychoeducational tool that we developed here in Leuven to support and facilitate communication around CNV in the family. And from the perspective, both from, let's say, the child with the CNV, the brother and the sister, and the parents. And in Dutch, it's called Samen leggen we de puzzel. And I just, for this purpose, I translated it to putting the pieces together, which I hope is a good translation for, let's say, this, our tool. So, but perhaps a little bit background why we have developed this for this particular group. As you know, at the Center of Human Genetics in Leuven, which is part of the University Hospital in Gasthuisberg, we see many families, of course, with let's say, when they have concerns about, a genetic aspect in their family. And a subgroup of those families are families with a child where there is a suspicion of developmental delay. And we are, first of all, looking for the cause of this developmental delay or developmental disorder. And in a subgroup of these children, we see that they have a genetic syndrome, as we used to call it. It is a combination of, let's say, developmental disabilities, so major congenital anomalies, which are associated with neurodevelopmental disorders or intellectual disability, which we used to call them rare diseases. And in a subgroup of those rare diseases, this is caused by a copy number variation, and I come back what this means in a minute. We are a multidisciplinary team, so besides clinical genetics, there are also, besides clinical geneticists, there are also genetic counselors working at our clinic, and I'm a clinical educational psychologist. There are also psychologists, so also behavioral experts are working in our team. Our focus and approach is, in fact, holistic, which means body and mind together, and also child and family, not only the child, but the broader family. And this philosophy, in fact, was, I think, it has been a privilege to work here at this department for, this year for 30 years. It's my 30th year here at the center and at the department, because our founding father, which was Professor Herman van den Berg, and you see here a picture of him when we celebrated our 5th anniversary a couple of years ago, where he pointed in his lecture that he said, in fact, rare diseases or genetic syndromes, copy number variations are by definition varied, complex and progressive conditions that may generate multiple disabilities and require access to state-of-the-art specialist knowledge and attention at times that are not always predictable. So you hear immediately the variety, the phenotypic variability, the change across development, the changing phenotype. And the second part of his message was that it requires that type of care, so multidisciplinary, transitional, adaptable. But at the same time, he also pointed already from in the beginning of the center that families who are affected by this also need a holistic and personalized approach to care that takes into account the individual person, but also his or her context. And I think this message, in fact, is the summary, which is, what, let's say, was the background of this program. So what are, in fact, copy number variations for some of you who are not familiar with this term? So some chromosomal disorders or genomic disorders can be caused by copy number variations. And here on the top, I hope that you see my arrow. So this is the reference chromosome, which means, so you have a short arm, a long arm, and we can divide this in pieces in here just for, let's say, the letters of the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F. That's the normal chromosome. A copy number variation is when there is a structural variation. So there is, for instance, in this case, in the deletion, you see that the D block is missing in this chromosome, which we call then a microdeletion. Sometimes it can be, in this case, that it's duplicated, so that a part of your chromosome is duplicated. And that is what is also called a copy number variation. And due to the technical advances in the lab, we are now able not only to detect microdeletions and duplications, but also segmental duplications and inversions, which are in fact a little bit the same. They are all belong to the overall group of copy number variations. But to give you an idea, so these are very sometimes small things that can be deleted, so missing pieces, or they can be largely. So the size of these copy number variations can also vary between people. Okay, so this is the background. And so the psychoeducational tool is made for this type of families affected by a child who has this CNV. And so the last 10, 15 years, this has been an enormous group of children now detected. So our multidisciplinary care for persons with genomic disorders is, in fact, we have 5, you could say, important points in our care, which is the holistic focus, early assessment of the patient's needs and psychoeducation, multidisciplinary consultations and meetings, coordination and continuation of the personalized care, and then, of course, also the longitudinal follow-up and anticipatory guidance. And my talk is, of course, at the beginning, which is once you have a diagnosis, families need to understand what it means for their particular son or daughter. And then, of course, there is the need also to explain it to other people outside the family. So these early diagnosis and assessment of needs is really an opportunity, because you can start with organizing and coordinate a personalized multidisciplinary care for the child and the parent. It gives you the opportunity for psychoeducation to inform families and to explain. And then this is where, this project came. And then, of course, to anticipate and manage the medical, psychosocial, and educational needs. And so it all starts with the birth of a baby, where, parents immediately, sometimes we see that there are concerns, sometimes it's a little bit later. But in fact, once a diagnosis is made in this child, that this child carries a CNV, and it's a pathogenic CNV, which means that it has an impact on brain development, on the development of some congenital major organs and further on. So in families affected by genomic disorders such as CNVs, parents face a lot of challenges in the beginning. The impact, of course, of the CNV for that child in terms of the medical outcome and the developmental outcome. So one of the first things, of course, parents will ask, will my child be able to live independently? How will her life will be? Of course, also, they have to face the necessary treatments, which are sometimes surgery. Think about a congenital heart defect in some of these children, or a medical follow-up. But also, and this is where, we come into place, is where, of course, the need also of explaining the diagnosis, well, understanding the diagnosis, and then explaining it to the child itself and the brothers and sisters. And in my experience, a lot of parents struggle with this, how to know when and how and what to tell, and also to decide when, how, and what to tell. And that was the reason when I work here for a long time, that I thought perhaps I can contribute with something based on, experience and things that I tried. And this is, the start of this psychoeducational tool. So in children with a CNV, or in a person with a copy number variation, both medical and the body and the mind, there are questions and concerns. And this is really interconnected. We do not see them as a separate. So it's not, let's say that you think, oh, there is something about a congenital heart defect and I only focus on that. You have to think about, for instance, what is the impact of this congenital heart defect on the global functioning of this child, but also, for instance, on their fatigue. Is there perhaps an impact on their everyday life functioning? And so that is when we started with making this psychoeducational tool. And as you heard already, I will point to this several times again. So we have these pieces of the puzzle, you see them here on the screen. So all the physical features you can think of are in green. So the person itself is in orange, the child, the boy or the girl, and the physical thing is in green. And everything which has to do with development, with behavior, with what we could say the brain, the mind, is in fact in blue. To make immediately already the distinction between body, mind, but both things, they stick together. And it's important to look at it in a holistic way. And that's why I also thought they have to be connected. So I will work with the pieces of a puzzle, because you make the pieces of a puzzle, you put the things together. Okay, so through questions and answers at a consultation and by using the pieces of the puzzle, the child and parents learn more about the genomic disorder, in this case, the CNV. And here you see on the photograph, you see Lotte. She's one of our patients with a 22q deletion syndrome. She is 16 years of age, and she has a mild intellectual disability and also the diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. And she has used this several times already over the years to tell us how she experiences it, what it is, and that she also can explain it to, for instance, her brother and her sister, but also her grandmother and further on. I have put also an extra short video which was made by the regional television here about it. I'm sorry, it's in Dutch, so I'm not going to show it, but afterwards you can log to it, you can look at it, and it really illustrates, the flexible way how we do it. So what do we discuss in, let's say, this putting the pieces together? So I made a booklet which I call the family book, because it's not only about a child with CNV, but it's also about the whole family, the parents, the brothers and the sisters. So it consists of 3 parts. The blue part is, this is me. This is for the child with the CNV. Then the pink is for the siblings, which we call in Dutch brussen, so broers en zussen. And the green part is the whole family. Okay, so we start, well, in fact, I have made it that you can start with, you do not have to start with, this is me. You can even start with the brothers and the sisters part, because sometimes I get more questions from parents. How do I tell it to my other children, because the child itself sometimes is not so, do not ask a lot of questions, but the brothers and sisters. So it's built like that you can start with the part of the brothers and the sister, or you can just start with the child. So for this purpose, for this workshop, I just start with the child. So it's about who am I, and I start very, let's say, low level. It depends if you know the child very well, if you do not know it. So it would be like if you see somebody for the first time, it's like you have in a friendship book. So who are you? What's your name, your age, where do you live? What do you live alone? And what do you really like to do? This is what is one of your wishes. There are several, pages in the book. The book consists of 48 pages, so it's a quiet book that you can use as just as a tool. And of course, quite often we ask children, do you know where you are, with what type of doctors do you have to come into the hospital? For instance, for your heart, for your ear, for your eyes. And so they can talk about it, and they can even take already some pieces of the puzzle if they like. Then we go to, okay, I know now, for instance, that you come to the doctor for your heart and for your hearing, but are there perhaps some other questions that you might have? For instance, why do I learn a lot at a slower speed compared to my brothers and my sisters? Why is my voice different than other children? Why can I not speak as loud as other children? Why am I more tired? So they can ask let's say, here are the questions for the child, and some of them who can write, they can put them in the pieces of the puzzle. If they cannot write, or they prefer to use, the pieces of the puzzle that, explains a little bit, let's say things physically, but also think in the blue pieces about your thoughts, your emotions, questions that you have. And it can also be for the parents and for the brothers and the sisters. And the reason why I do this is because to know if they have the same questions, sometimes completely different questions, to have an idea about what's going on in the family. And so if children like, they can use these pieces of the puzzle, or I put also the pieces of the puzzle into stickers, a kind of panini stickers. It's included in the booklet. So a lot of children sometimes like to take the stickers and put it on because it's more child friendly. So then we come to, let's say, okay, we have put some of the pieces of the puzzle. You have told me already some part of your story, the questions that you have. But the question is now, how does all these things connect to each other? Sometimes they know already, sometimes they have heard, sometimes it's something on my 16, it's something on 3. What do you know that the doctor has said that you know from mom and dad? And so then I explain to them that we are all, well, you know, built of millions of cells, and in those cells, in the nucleus, in the cell kern, as we say in Dutch, you know, there we have our genetic material, our chromosomes, and when we order them from larger, you have 2 each of them. So I just basically explain it to children, what makes up, let's say, the genetic information to make a little boy or a girl. And it's a little bit like pieces of a puzzle. And so then I ask them, do you know already which chromosome, you know, there is something or not? And if they do know, they can show it to me. Otherwise, we'll just talk about it. And so in this case, for instance, I just take the example of 22, one of my favorite chromosomes, and they can write it up. And in this case, for instance, it's a missing, it is a part missing, so you have the deletion. Sometimes it can be a duplication. And so that's when we put the pieces together, that they see, okay, this is what it means for me now at this age. And then you can talk about it. And they can, sometimes I ask them, do you want to take a picture from it with your cell phone? Because until now, I did not have the separate boxes for the families to take home. But since this week, I have a prototype which I can share with you and which goes now in production. So besides doing this in the clinic, they can have it also at their home, or schools can have it, therapists can have it, but we will talk a little bit about this later. So for instance, in this case, this girl with 22q11 deletion syndrome, at age 7, if we asked her, can you explain a little bit about what is going on for you? Well, she has a congenital heart defect. I do hope that you see here the pictures and that you agree with me. I refuse to work with lists to say, okay, this picture stands for this. No, it's just, you know, in the words of the child, in the things that they say, that they pick it. And I think that makes it also flexible. For instance, here is, I get easily sick. I have a lot of infections. When somebody sneezes, I immediately get fever. I speak through my nose, or, you know, I sound, my voice is a little bit different. I have problems with riding with a bike, which can point to balance problems. But so it's only the pictures. There are no lists, because I think it's crucial that you give the child a chance to say how he or she thinks about it and how they feel about it. And so these are the physical things at age 7 for this girl. These are the blue. So she loves a lot animals. Well, you see, this is one person who looks around everything. So she has problems with her attention. Sometimes she's very happy. Sometimes she's very sad. You could say mood swings. She doesn't like a lot of noise, and she does not sleep very well. She cannot say why, but it's like that. And the thing that I've also learned is that these things, what it means to them and how it affects them, can change over time. Of course, the congenital heart defect, it stays, but of course she's operated and it's not that, let's say, impacting her anymore as in the beginning. But now, for instance, physically, she has, I just go back to the previous one, sorry. So she has now a scoliosis, and she's also much more tired than her peers. The sleeping problems are still present. She has a lot of mood swings, But in school, until now, everything was okay. But now she gets it harder with more abstract things. She feels often very lonely, although she's, together with other people. And she has discovered the music, and she also experienced that while being in nature, she feels more happy. So these are the things that they can tell you and that they can tell their parents too. So parents also tell me that because of the visualization of these things, the flexibility, that they sometimes learn things from their children that they cannot express with words or under ideas. So it's very helpful for them. Of course, you can think about other CNVs, and often in CNVs, we see children with the combination of CNVs, for instance, a 22q.11 deletion syndrome, but also a 16p11.2 duplication. So, for instance, in this boy, he put these things on, which is I have problems with my speech through the nose. My voice is very quiet. I cannot, speak very loud enough in class. Teachers always say, talk a little bit louder, but I cannot do this. He has problems with his weight. He's very thin, although he eats a lot. So there is some problems. And then at school, it's quite difficult, hard for him. He has particularly problems with mathematics. He doesn't like surprises. He doesn't like noise, but he's also a fan of music, and he loves animals. And here you see also, we also have 3 blank or white empty pieces of the puzzle, because I wanted that children, it's not because I think I have made something that I think is quite complete, that it fits, that it covers everything. So I say to them, possibly there are things that, are very important for you, but you do not find them between the pieces. So please tell us about it. You can draw it. You can write it up. We can change it. So they can make this. They can write it. And this is also, I think, one of the things that was added to the original. So the second part is, but you can start with them. It's like with the brothers and the sisters, because the brother or the sister of a child with a CNV, often they have a lot of questions. Why is my brother or sister developing differently? Why is he sometimes, so cute, and sometimes I'm so sad about what he's doing, or I feel so very sad for him or her, or we have a lot of arguments and they do not understand it. And parents sometimes do not know the right words and say to explain this sometimes very, very complex genetic diagnosis behind it. So again, I start with very, let's say, low-level things. Who are you? What's your name? What's your hobby? Because also to pay attention to them and to say, a lot of the attention already goes to your brother and sister, and they feel they're very loyal to their parents. They do not often do not want to say this to parents, because they say they have already so much on their plate and in their minds. So often children, but you see them suffering, or you hear from parents that they say, it's very hard for me to talk because I feel that they cannot say it to me. So I also have seen a lot of brothers and sisters from these children. And then we talk about also, for instance, can you explain me a little bit what you really like about your brother and sister, or what's very difficult for you? What would you like to do with your brother and sister, or what would you really sometimes prefer just to do alone, to have the attention for you alone, or to be alone with mom and dad, and about what? Because these are things that are very difficult for a brother or a sister of a child with a CNV to put on the table spontaneously. It's not easy, particularly when they get older. They reflect a lot and they keep the things inside. Also, for instance, tell about your things, how you feel, because we do know that children with brothers and sisters of a child with a CNV, they're often very wise children, very mature children, but also sometimes children with a lot of hidden, I would say, hidden worries and hidden sadness. And they cannot always express it into the family, which I understand. But at the same time, I think if we can help them to make this communication a little bit more like, okay, I can put it on the table, then I think we have reached our goal. And so we also talk about sometimes if they need some help, or if they would like to talk about it, or just not talk about it, and with whom do they want to talk about it. And then finally, the third part, it's about, our whole family, because we are not only looking at the child with the CNV and the brother and the sister, but also mom and dad, perhaps the broader family, grandparents. And this part is a little bit more focusing on, let's say, keeping balance in our life. And so we talk about that possibly because of the birth of a child with, a lot of medical concerns, developmental behavioral concerns, a lot of things have put us temporarily out of balance, but that this is normal. And then first I ask about how it is for each of them. For the child, perhaps the out of balance is in school. It might be that it is within, let's say, within the family, within the relationship. So parents, their other children, the child with the CNV can, talk about it. And what I often use is this. They prefer really much like, you're driving a car. So sometimes we cannot go into red. Where is it? So we use also these colors often for, very young children, but also they really like it to say, now I'm going into red, or I really prefer we are still not in the green zone, to say where they are. So you give them a little bit tools, pictures, images that they can choose that say, okay, this covers, what I want to say. And that's the reason why this tool is quite flexible in use and in interpretation. So you can think about what brings you into balance at the level of the child with the CNV, the brothers and the sisters, mother and father, and also how do you do it? Do you have already somebody in your natural network, in your social network, or do you sometimes need perhaps professional help? And can we be a go-between with that, or do you want to discuss with it? So to say that parents, you are not alone. You don't forget it. Here you are. You're not alone. Don't forget, and you are a unique family. You are much, much more than just a family where one of the children has another trajectory of development or another trajectory in life. So to bring these things together. So this was a little bit in a very short overview to give some ideas about the different things that you can discuss, the topics, the point of views, and my experiences so far. So we have been doing this for the last, let's say, with the package around, let's say, a little bit more than a year. Before that, I had only homemade, let's say, map with pictures. So now I'm really happy with the pieces of the puzzle, because I see that children and parents really, really like this question and answer and the pieces of the puzzle, that combination. And I do believe that's because it's quite clear and very visual on the CNV. So it makes, let's say, that it's not like, oh, it's so complicated, I do not know how to start with it to explain it. Also not in the family, but sometimes to a teacher, to somebody, a psychologist they go to. I also get a lot of requests now from therapists, psychologists, schools, to say, okay, can we also have this, because we have many children with this, and it makes it very low level. Also for other children, in the class, that they want to hear about it. And so it has, let's say, accelerated a lot of more communication, also more open communication that parents tell me. It can be used, I think, in a very flexible way. So you can start with the child with the CNV, but you can start also with the brothers and the sisters, and you can follow them up, because we do know that the phenotypes, they change over time. So I think that's the reason why I think the pieces of the puzzle and the fact that your book, you can change from one part to the other. We do know that it can be adapted to the developmental stage and level of almost all children. I have the youngest children that I've been working until now are 6 years of age. Also children with neurodevelopmental disorders, such as a mild intellectual disability, autism spectrum disorder. So because I think it's visual, they understand it. And what I think is very important, that the attention goes to all, not only to the child with the CNV, which is often very needed. So if you are interested, here is the website of of our lab, Lab for Behavior and Neurodevelopment, and we have made a specific website for Samenleggen we de puzzel. Okay, so I just go back. Well, this is the laboratory, and if you go then to here, Samenleggen we de puzzel, you come to the border information. But I just go back to the presentation here. So you go to Samenleggen we de puzzel. This was the website, and then you see. Okay, until now it's in Dutch. I put 4 screenshots from the website. So it's about what is the tool, how can you do it in the clinic of the raadpleging, and how can you do it at home. I have made a manual online, but also a manual in the package. And originally, of course, I started with the 22q11 deletion syndrome, which is, of course, one of the groups that I follow here. But in the meantime, we also use it with other CNVs, so children with other duplications or combinations of several, let's say, copy number variations in one person. Here you see it. Here you see the prototype, which goes now in production. So you see the box. So this is the top, and here is I can show it in a minute. This is on below the package, and in the package you have the physical features, you have the blank pieces of the puzzle, you have the blue ones, you have the booklet, and you have the manual, which describes several scenarios, how you can do it, so that, let's say, everyone, in fact, can start with this. So the whole package is the book, the puzzle, and the manual. Currently, it's only available in Dutch, but since I've presented it just before Corona, it was released. There are already, people from abroad who have asked if it could be in English, in French, Spanish, Danish, Finnish, Polish, and Italian, which is on my to-do list. Because, of course, I only have to translate the book and the manual, because the pieces of the puzzle, they stay the same. It's a very visual tool, so not too much about language. So I do hope first to unroll it in Dutch, and then in 2021 to have more, let's say, in different languages. And I will start with French and English, because I think once we have this it can be easily more, I think, available for more people. So I would like to thank you all for your attention, and please feel free to shoot some questions or discussion.